The ball python market is dying. The crash is here. Abandon ship. We made a video similar to this last year, and nothing has really changed since then. But today I wanted to discuss some valid concerns and why you shouldn't really worry. The first concern would be the decreasing prices that the snakes are getting now. That certainly sounds like something that would need to be worried about, and it can be depending on where you are in the market. I would say that a large majority of breeders are in the smaller ball python market, in this area where they're breeding snakes just to breed them or for just very basic combos. And for certain things, basic combos, they're still valid. There is still a market for them. It's just mostly just a pet market right now for them. And that's fine. But it's important to know what you're going for in certain combos if you're going to expect any significant return on them. You should also be realistic about the returns on these. The idea that you're going to breed and get super duper rich, please dispel that right now. In fact, if you're in this for the money, I don't think that it's right for you, because in the end, the passion is what's going to win. But people who want to make money, who want to turn this into a business, that's not evil. But just be realistic if you're going to get into this on what you choose to breed and how much it's going to get. And realize that as people create these combos, the prices will come down to a certain amount and stabilize at some point. Pet level, I'd say, is anywhere between, maybe as low as $25 sometimes, even for a normal, upwards to, I'd say, about a max of maybe 500, and that's pushing it. 500 is where you kind of get into the beginnings of the next level, really. But this lower level we're going to be talking about a lot today. And on that, the decreasing costs are on these low level snakes a disproportionate amount versus the medium and especially the higher end level snakes. It's always done this as well. Decreasing costs happen because more people are creating a certain combination. The innovation and ability to create new combinations and new projects is what drives everything. And they always start at a massive level and then start filtering down, and the costs go down. The banana gene, at one point they were selling these animals for $50,000, and now they're lower. And everyone at the time said, oh my God, the market is dying. When video recorders were first invented, they were ridiculously unaffordable for almost every single person. To have one was to rent one for a weekend to film your child's birthday party and then return it. And now you have a video camera in your pocket. Costs normalize, and it's not any different with a ball python. As people create more and innovate, it's going to come to a certain amount where it reaches that pet level price. That is the inevitability for the most part. Most combos, now some of them where they're very difficult to find, they're going to maintain a higher price, but even them will start to creep down depending on how complex it is. Double recessives are going to always creep down to some level. They will stabilize at some point. Higher end combos, which can be difficult to hit, will probably maintain their higher end costs, but even then they'll start to come down to some sort of stabilization. Decreasing costs are a natural part of any economic system that is going to be stable. Without decreasing costs, your actual market will die. The fact they are decreasing is the sign that it is good. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it hasn't disproportionately decreased since just after 2020. The economy heavily influences this, and it's not great right now. Inflation is at a very high amount. It might sound crude to put them in these terms, but pets are a luxury good. It's not a necessity of life like food, like gasoline, paying your bills to keep your electricity on, and all of that stuff. And when those go up, and when food prices go up, the price of energy goes up, the luxury goods that we sometimes take for granted have to go to the wayside a bit. And then when you're not selling things as a luxury goods seller, you lower your price to try to spurn people to buy. All of these factors play a bit into why the price is going down, but it is natural and it has happened. We'll be talking about the past a lot here, but if you look at old genes, you see this all of the time. And that's my argument to people who are saying that you should only look at the depreciating cost of these animals and that will tell you everything you need to know, because that doesn't make any sense, because there are still animals out there that are selling right now, even in our oversaturated market. Which brings me into my next point, oversaturation. That is another thing I hear is that the oversaturation of the market is going to break it. If you go on Morph Market right now and check how many animals are available for purchase, you will see a lot of ball pythons. Oversaturation is affecting the price, because if I, as a breeder, we sold a banana to customers A, B, C, and D, they raise them up and they breed this animal out. So now I am still producing my animals, and now I have created 4 more people who are also producing this animal. You can see very quickly why, especially in the case of dominant genes and co-dominant genes, the price and oversaturation starts to happen, and people may have gotten into this with the wrong intentions of just making a quick buck because they thought this was a get-rich-quick method, and it is not. It can be lucrative, it can be very rewarding, but you should not go in with expectations of that, especially if you're not paying attention to what genetics you get. And that's the point I'm going to make. The oversaturation of these animals is mostly lower end animals, but yet if you look on Morph Market, if you look at the numbers that they're releasing, more ball pythons are being sold during this time period than ever before on Morph Market alone. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, even my lower end animals, I still sell them. You just need to be realistic with how much you're going to get, and furthermore, you need to market yourself properly. You need to put yourself out there and stand out as to why someone should purchase your animal over all of the competition. There's a lot of it. So what makes you different? And you might think that's impossible when there's so many animals on the market, but one of the best ways for me, especially on lower end animals, is to do it in person. It is a personal connection, and I love doing this. I love selling a kid their first snake and seeing the excitement light up in their eyes. That's enough of a reward for me. But even from the monetary standpoint, they are still able to be sold at, yes, a profit, or at the very least to pay for themselves and the food that they ate. I have no problem doing this on single gene animals that I have produced, or 2 gene animal combos. If you are having a problem, I'm not saying it's your fault, but maybe you should look in the mirror and say, what can I do differently, rather than throwing your hands in the air because you have a lot of competition. Oversaturation, however, I will give credit to the point that there's a lot of people buying animals that are being passed from collection to collection and breeding out stuff that's not going to sell for a ton, and they get frustrated that it's that way, and it's just going to continue to be that way for them if they don't innovate and invest. If you want to make money, you can do it at a lower level, but you get what you pay for. So yes, there is oversaturation, but it's not proportionate to what they're telling you. If you're in the middle, or especially at the high end, it's not affecting you as much. What's being affected most, I would say, in middle class or just in general, are just simple, maybe 2 recessive combos. Recessives are the way to maintain value because they're harder to make. But the idea that a simple 2 recessive combo is going to be sitting in the quadruple digit dollar amount forever, you need to banish that thought, because they will eventually come down. Look at albino pieds. And now, to a lesser extent, you're starting to see clown pieds start to become under 1,000, especially for males. Simple combos are going to fall. Now, they do plateau at some point, still in a higher bracket, but the oversaturation is mostly going to affect the lower end animals. I hear a lot that this is a pyramid scheme, but the only problem with that is that when you buy a snake from me, the top end breeders are not getting a cut. You could argue that maybe I bought a snake from them, which helped make said snake, but again, that makes no sense because I'm making the snake for these people. I'm not looking to go downwards. Now, obviously, I will have lower end animals as I produce, but those are misses. The ones that I release are ones that I am not using to help create more things for myself. That is the objective, is for me to create and keep as much as possible so that I can create my own things to get ahead of the guy that I bought from, or on his level at the very least. I have my own ideas. I have my own aspirations. I have my own thoughts. A pyramid scheme requires you to not have any of that to work. The simple matter is that if you're only doing lower end animals, you're going to have a harder time making a major profit. You could sell these wholesale probably to certain pet stores and probably break even in most cases. As long as you you invested properly, and you could be fine in this lower end market. But the idea of a pyramid scheme is that the people who were stuck in the lower end will not be able to climb out. Well, I was in the lower end, and I started making a lot of my decisions to continue to upgrade to get into the higher levels when this market crash is supposedly happening. So wouldn't I theoretically not be able to have climbed? There's plenty of other stories about out there like this as well. It is very easy for you to make decisions to get into different projects. It's just about picking which ones. There is risk though. The idea that there isn't is silly. This isn't stock market risk, but there are risks on certain projects for various different reasons, including overproduction and saturation at some point. People who got into clowns, into desert ghosts even, thinking that these were the biggest things on earth. And don't get me wrong, clowns are absolutely amazing. I've got tons of clowns. Desert ghosts, absolutely amazing, but they are so saturated now because everybody got into it and they produced these single gene or pastel desert ghosts, and now they're everywhere. Well, what are you going to do to stand out to sell this animal now? So it's a lot about personal decisions and whatnot, but maybe I am part of the scheme. The next point I would make is kind of what I said from the beginning. People abandoning ship. Everyone supposedly getting out of it. Well, I'm not getting out of it, and many other people are not getting out of it, but yes, there's a lot of people who are getting out of it, and it's for various different reasons. Perhaps they lost their passion. Perhaps they aren't making the money that they were hoping to make. And perhaps they started raising things up and the money didn't come through in time because they didn't invest the proper ways. But a lot of times you see these animals get passed around honestly quite a bit. You're buying full collections, and most of these animals are very low end, but people get in and out of this hobby all the time. In fact, the same people sometimes get in and out of it often as well, and I can't say what causes a person to do that. Probably balancing their passion with the amount of money that this could possibly bring in and the amount of time that it takes, because it's an extra job. If I take a day off from my job, I'm still doing this one. So yeah, people are going to be getting in and out of it, but everyone's reason is different, so I don't view this as the same. And there are cycles that a lot of people get in and then a lot of people get out. It happens every 5 years or so. And after the pandemic had a bunch of people sitting at home, getting paid, having the government send them stimulus checks and all sorts of stuff, and them being bored, watching YouTube, getting inspired to get into snakes, and then having to go back to work and probably realizing that this was a hobby that they started when they had a lot of time on their hands and now they no longer would like to do. Now you have a bunch of people getting out. You have the boom, and then you have the people get out, and then you have the boom. The point is that people will get in and out, and you shouldn't be worried about other people. Worry about yourself. And if you need to make corrections, then do so. And if you're doing well, then keep on at it. Another point I would like to make is one that I've kind of already alluded on, and that would be that the ball python market, it has what I'd say at least 3 different personalities. And I've already talked about this, but that would be the lower end market, the mid market, and the high end market. These 3 different markets behave differently. The largest market of them all is the lower end market, because these lower end animals are easily produced and thus garners the most attention. Currently, there are 44,000 ball pythons in total listed on Morph Market. If I sort by just a minimum of 3 traits, that could be as simple as a het and 2 incomplete dominants. That number shoots all the way down to 27,852. This is by no means a high-end animal. What I'm saying is that most of the single gene animals are going to be very low end. If I sort this to 5 genes, so that would be something like double recessive and 1 gene, maybe a recessive and a couple genes on top of that, we go all the way down to 4,625 animals listed. The largest selling market for ball pythons in the world is Morph Market. This is a good, healthy pulse on the market. And when you cut out the fat of the lower end snakes, you look at a different picture. Yes, it is a picture that is being affected, but by no means even close to the way that the lower end market is being affected. I would like to read a post about the ball python market. It's not necessarily someone saying that it's going to come to an end, but they say, I in a way believe that the ball python market is dead, and they're asking opinions of, do they think it's going to die. One of the comments says that since more people are getting into the hobby, the value of ball pythons are going to exponentially depreciate, and that the market will be what it is with corn snakes, and that 10 years in the future, maybe less, that this will all be dead. There's just one problem with what I just told you. This post was from 2015, almost a decade ago. I don't see the market dead. In fact, I hear the same thing. It's just that the types of snakes have changed. The snakes that are now cheaper were the ones maybe that were super duper expensive at that point, but they're still the high-end stuff driving everything. They were not right 10 years ago, and they're not right now. Just 5 years ago, comment on Reddit saying that the market is not sustainable at all, and it's due to crash hard. This is the most ridiculous comment I could find. They are saying that it's going to result in wild type culling, even of double and even triple gene snakes. The 4 to 5 gene snakes being sold for under $100, with only super desired morphs breaking over 100. They go on to say that 5 years, ball pythons will have reached critical mass and the mass culling will begin. It has now been 5 years, and that is not happening. Believe it or not, the ball pythons are listed as a at-risk species. Might be hard to believe when you can buy them like crazy and they're considered the most popular snake and arguably the most popular reptile even, but that's in the pet community. In their natural habitat, they're at risk of going endangered. I don't care if you believe the market is crashing. If you think that there's going to be mass killings, you're off your rocker. I could go on and on with more examples, older examples, of people saying that the ball python market is due to crash any day now, and yet we're still waiting for that day. If this video inspired you to join the pyramids, start a ball python business, you can actually check out our video right here.